In the quiet where lullabies should live, only silence remains. A child 7 months new to the world vanishes. No trace. No witness. Only a story that doesn't quite add up. His name was Emmanuel Haro, a boy who never learned to walk, yet somehow walked out of existence under adult supervision. And now, the question hangs heavy. Were those entrusted with his care given more protection than the child himself? Why did the timeline shift? Why did law enforcement describe the parent's story as inconsistent? And perhaps the hardest question of all, why are some suspects met with gentleness, even when a baby is missing? Tonight, we follow the quiet trail Emmanuel left behind and ask, is justice equal for all? Or is there such a thing as too much mercy? If Emmanuel's silence is unbearable to you, don't scroll past. Don't turn away. Share this video, let his name echo across every corner of the internet. You owe him that echo. Emmanuel Haro was just 7 months old. A little boy whose world had barely begun. He was learning to smile at faces, to recognize love by touch, to feel safe in the arms that held him. He had soft brown eyes, a small, curious frame about 21 pounds, barely 2 feet tall. Cross-eyed, they said, with a spark of charm that made him unforgettable. In every coo, a question. In every cry, a reaching toward the life that awaited him. Emmanuel didn't yet know first steps, or first birthdays. He never got to say his first word. What was taken from him wasn't just a future, but the chance to become. Tonight, we don't remember Emmanuel as a headline or a case file. We remember him as a child, a life with laughter ahead of it, a soul the world never truly met. August 14th, 2025. A warm summer day in Yucaipa, California. Rebecca Haro walks into a Big Five sporting goods parking lot with her infant son, Emmanuel. According to her statement, she was changing his diaper near the car when a stranger approached and said one word, "Hola." She claimed she suddenly blacked out, and when she came to Emmanuel was gone. The story was chilling, immediate, emotional. Flyers went up across Southern California within hours. Amber Alert bulletins lit up highways. Television crews aired urgent pleas. If you know anything, please come forward. The public rallied. Volunteers gathered. And law enforcement mobilized fast. K9 units. Helicopters. Drones. Dozens of officers reviewing surveillance footage from the store, nearby businesses, and roadways. But the further investigators looked, the more the trail began to fade. Not because they weren't searching, but because something in the story just didn't sit right. If the justice system's mercy scared away consequences, how will you act? Hit like for Emmanuel, for every child who never had the chance to speak. Let the algorithm carry his name, even when the courts fail to. From early in the investigation, detectives noticed discrepancies in Rebecca's account. Her timeline didn't match security footage. There was no sign of a struggle, no confirmed sightings, and most notably no evidence of a suspect on any surrounding cameras. Questions were asked, but soon, the cooperation stopped. Rebecca declined further interviews, and the narrative stalled. Behind the scenes, investigators obtained search warrants for the Haro family home in Cabazon. What they found raised even more concern. Cadaver dogs signaled alerts. Photos were reportedly missing. Infant clothes gone. And what police referred to as possible traces of blood were collected for testing. The search widened. Electronics was seized. Their car impounded. The yard was dug in sections. And then came the most striking moment so far. Jake Haro, wearing a jail-issued jumpsuit, was escorted to a field, walking alongside search dogs, in an attempt to locate the remains of his own missing son. But still no Emmanuel. Just more silence, more questions, and a growing sense that something wasn't being told. As the investigation deepened, so did the concerns. In 2023, 2 years before Emmanuel was reported missing, Jake Haro stood before a court and admitted to harming another infant, his daughter from a previous relationship. Court records confirmed the child suffered serious injuries. Medical reports cited head trauma, permanent impairment. The incident, by all legal standards, was severe. But the outcome was not what many expected. Jake was not sentenced to prison. He received 180 days of work release, probation, mandatory parenting classes, and supervised counseling. Counseling reports later described him as progressing well. One evaluation even labeled him a low risk to children, a stamp of approval given not long before Emmanuel's disappearance. In a public statement, Riverside County District Attorney Mike Hestron didn't hold back. He called that leniency outrageous and added, "If that judge had done his job, Emmanuel would be alive today." It's a chilling thought, one that invites uncomfortable questions. When prior harm is known, how many warnings does the system need before it acts? Here lies the fracture line, not just in one home, but within the very system meant to safeguard those who cannot speak for themselves. A justice system that, at times, shows extraordinary patience, even when the warnings are clear. Jake Haro had already stood in court. He had already admitted to harming a child. And yet what followed was not containment, but leniency, counseling, probation, evaluations that downplayed risk, a narrative of rehabilitation that seemed to overshadow a history of harm. It wasn't just a missed red flag. It was a blueprint of how accountability can be delayed, how patterns can be overlooked, and how the most vulnerable can pay the highest price. This isn't just one decision. It's a system shaped by discretion, where good intentions sometimes leave space for irreversible outcomes. A gavel should carry weight, and protection shouldn't depend on optimism. Emmanuel Haro didn't get a second chance. The question is, why did someone else get so many? A black and white photo, a baby onesie laid out gently on a courtroom table. Small, still, a symbol of a life that should have been filled with motion. At arraignment, Rebecca and Jake Haro sat apart, but similarly still. Hands cuffed, dressed in muted orange, the sterile glow of fluorescent lights reflecting off pale courtroom floors. Their eyes were cast downward, not toward each other, and not toward the judge. Faces unreadable, or simply exhausted. Bail was set at $1 million each. Behind them, no family, no photographs, just silence. Rebecca's face streaked with tears, mascara smudged under her eyes. Hard to tell if from sorrow or strain. Jake remained quiet, his expression hollow, as if the past had already spoken more than he could now. Their attorneys reminded the court, innocent until proven guilty. A cornerstone of justice. But does legal fairness always equate to moral clarity? Sometimes, in the absence of answers, the silence in a courtroom speaks louder than anything said aloud. Emmanuel Haro's little soul now lingers not as a case number, but as a question mark that refuses to fade. Who protects those too young to plead for help? Who watches closely when harm once done is allowed to repeat? We don't remember Emmanuel in legal jargon or press releases. We remember him in lullabies unsung, birthdays unwrapped, first words unspoken. Justice cannot afford to be reactive. It must be present. It must be watchful. It must be accountable. When mercy is extended blindly to those who've already shown harm, memory becomes mourning. Emmanuel should not be remembered for the silence that followed his name, but for the joy and light he barely had time to give. A child robbed of tomorrows, and in his absence, a demand for stronger guardians of our systems, and deeper courage from those who shape them.